On my 27th birthday, I stood by the window dressed and ready, waiting for a celebration that never came. Instead, I got a message that shattered me. You don't deserve it. My parents had ditched me to throw a surprise party for my sister. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your own family, this story will hit deep. But stay with me, because what started as heartbreak turned into something far more powerful, a journey of reclaiming worth legacy and the voice I never thought I had. My name is Jade Emerson, and for as long as I can remember, I was the background character in my own family. Not the golden child, not the troublemaker, just invisible. Growing up in suburban Indiana, I shared a house with my parents and younger sister Lacey. She was loud, charming, always shining like a spotlight was following her around. And me, I was the one behind the camera, the one setting the table, the one making sure Lacey's hair was just right for her birthday photos. I didn't resent her not at first. I figured that's just how things were. Some people are born to be stars and some are meant to clap from the sidelines. But as I got older, the imbalance grew harder to ignore. Every school play, Lacey got the lead. Every family vacation, she picked the destination. Every Christmas morning, her pile of presents was twice the size of mine. When I got accepted into college, my mom said, "That's nice, honey. Lacey's thinking of modeling school." When I got promoted at work, my dad said, "You should help Lacey with her resume." It wasn't just favoritism, it was erasure. They forgot my birthdays, skipped my art shows, even misspelled my name on a family Christmas card one year. I laughed it off. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. But deep down, it chipped away at me. Not because I needed applause, but because I wanted to matter. I wanted someone to look at me and say, "I see you. You belong here." By the time I turned 25, I had stopped expecting anything from them. I sent polite holiday texts, showed up for obligatory dinners, and kept my distance. Lacey, of course, remained the golden girl. She was always at the center, jobless, constantly starting over, but adored nonetheless. My parents made excuses for her, wrote checks for her, covered for her mistakes. And I was the one they called when they needed help moving a couch or fixing the Wi-Fi. Still, some part of me, stubborn and hopeful, held on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, things would change. That one day, my parents would surprise me with something small but meaningful. A birthday card, a hug, a moment that wasn't about Lacey. I didn't need fireworks, I just needed proof that I was seen. But that moment never came, not during holidays, not after I landed a huge project at work, and definitely not on birthdays, which became quieter with each passing year. I started celebrating alone, dinner with friends, cupcakes from the grocery store. I got good at pretending it didn't matter, until the year I turned 27. I don't know why, but that year felt different. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was finally realizing that the people who raised me weren't going to change. That the love I was waiting for wasn't going to come in the way I'd hoped. I remember looking at myself in the mirror that morning, dressed in the same navy blue dress I'd worn to my sister's birthday dinner the month before. It fit well, I looked good. And for a moment I let myself imagine that they'd notice. I texted my mom, "Hey, wanna do dinner tonight? It's my birthday." She replied 2 hours later, "Oh, didn't realize it was today. We're actually helping Lacey plan a little thing for her friends. Rain check, no apology, no happy birthday. Just nothing." That message, that was the final crack. I sat with it for hours, rereading it like it would magically change. But it didn't. It was simple, dismissive, cold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But mostly I just felt empty. Like someone had flipped a switch and turned off the last light I had left for them. That night I ordered takeout. Chinese food. The kind I used to eat when I was little, curled up in front of the TV while my parents fawned over Lacey's latest recital. It felt fitting. I sat at my kitchen table alone with a candle stuck into an egg roll. I made a wish anyway. I wished I could stop chasing their love. I wished I could stop shrinking myself to fit their comfort. And I wished deep down that someone, anyone, would see me. Really see me. Little did I know someone already had. A week after my birthday, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter in a pale blue envelope with gold edges. It was from my grandfather, my dad's father, who I hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. We used to be close when I was younger. He'd take me fishing, teach me how to paint with oils, and he always remembered my birthday, even if no one else did. But after he got sick and moved into assisted living, my parents became the middlemen. They filtered everything: visits, updates, even calls. I figured he just got tired, or maybe he forgot me too. But the letter said otherwise. He apologized for being distant, said he missed me terribly, and that he'd been asking for me often, but my parents always said I was too busy or traveling for work. None of it was true. He wrote, "Jade, I always knew you were the heart of this family. You were the quiet one, but not the forgotten one. Never to me." I must have read that line 10 times. Then he added something that didn't make sense at first. "Please come see me. I need to talk to you about something important before it's too late." I made the trip that weekend. The assisted living home was clean, cozy, filled with sunlight and old jazz music. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, like I'd just given him another birthday. He looked frail but sharp, sharper than I expected. We talked for hours. He asked about my job, my friends, my hobbies. No small talk. He wanted to know me. It felt like breathing for the first time after holding it in too long. Then he got quiet. He told me he'd been redoing his will, that he had some money, a little property, and a few paintings he wanted to go to the right people. He said, "Your father assumed it would all go to Lacey, but I've watched how they treat you. I've listened." He held my hand. "You've been patient, kind, overlooked, but not by me." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't expecting anything. I didn't need a house or a check. Just being remembered was enough. But he insisted. He said he was naming me the primary beneficiary, not out of pity, but because he believed I'd do something meaningful with it. "You don't just take up space, Jade. You create it for others, too. You give more than you get." I cried, quietly. He did, too. And then he told me something else, something that cracked the entire story open. Apparently last year, he'd asked my parents to invite me to Thanksgiving dinner. He wanted the whole family together. But they told him I said I couldn't come. He even tried to call me. They blocked his number from my phone to avoid drama. My parents had been keeping me away on purpose. I left that visit shaken but clear. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the neglect. They were deliberately excluding me. Not just out of habit, but out of control. Power. Image. And I had let them do it for years. 2 weeks later, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. I attended the funeral alone. Lacey wore white and cried for the cameras. My mom gave a long speech about family unity. My dad didn't look at me once. But when the will was read, everything changed. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't erased. I was seen, I was chosen, and they couldn't take it back. The days after the will reading were a blur. My parents were furious, though they tried to hide it behind tight smiles and passive-aggressive comments. Lacey stormed out of the lawyer's office. She didn't even look at me. My dad pulled me aside in the parking lot and said, "You don't know what you're doing. This was never meant for you." But I did know. For once in my life, I was sure. My grandfather trusted me with something bigger than just money or property. He trusted me to protect his legacy and finally stand up for myself. I inherited his small house near the lake, a few valuable paintings, and a letter he left tucked inside a book on his nightstand. It simply said, "Live your life with grace, but never let them shrink you again." That house became my sanctuary. I moved in quietly without telling many people. I left the city job that drained me and started working remotely doing freelance writing and editing. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me peace. Every morning, I'd sit on the porch with coffee and birdsong, feeling like I'd finally stepped into my own life, one not measured by someone else's approval. The strange thing? My phone stopped ringing. No calls from my parents, no texts, no family updates. It was like I'd been cut off for good, but this time it didn't feel like rejection. It felt like release. Still, I won't pretend it didn't hurt. There were nights I'd stare at old photos, wondering if things could have been different, if I'd spoken up sooner, if they'd ever really loved me. But those moments passed slowly, and in their place grew something better: clarity, strength, and a quiet pride in the woman I was becoming. I started hosting small dinners, just me and a few close friends who felt more like family than blood ever had. We'd laugh until midnight, cook from scratch, talk about everything and nothing. No one ignored me, no one talked over me, and for the first time I didn't feel invisible. I felt home. That's the thing about loss, it can break you open. But it also clears space, space to choose differently, to love better, to finally put yourself first, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And I wasn't going back. One afternoon, as I was trimming the overgrown roses by the fence, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. I froze, shears in hand, as the door opened and Lacey stepped out. She looked like she'd come straight from a magazine shoot, tailored blazer heels too high for gravel, and that same look of superiority she'd worn all our lives. But there was something else this time. Something behind her eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. "I just want to talk," she said quietly. We sat on the porch in silence at first, nursing glasses of lemonade like strangers who shared a past they didn't want to talk about. Finally, she blurted out, "I didn't know Grandpa left everything to you. I only found out the day of the reading. Mom and Dad, they told me he was leaving it to them, that I didn't need to worry." I looked at her, unsure if she expected sympathy or an apology. "He left it to me because he knew what they'd do with it," I said. "And because he saw me even when none of you did." She nodded, staring down at her hands. "I guess I never really saw you either. I was too busy being perfect." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she continued. I guess I wanted you to know I'm sorry. For how I treated you. For that birthday. That birthday. The one I spent crying alone in a diner booth while they celebrated her across town. I remember the waitress trying to make me smile by adding whipped cream to my pancakes. I remember checking my phone every 5 minutes, hoping anyone would call. But they didn't. And now, here she was, years later, saying sorry like that could rewrite history. But maybe it didn't need to. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. And I meant it. "But I also don't need you to fix anything. I've built something new. And I'm proud of it." Lacey nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. It surprised me she always kept her emotions locked up tight. "I just wanted to say it," she whispered, "before it's too late." After she left, I sat for a long time staring at the horizon where the lake met the sky. I didn't feel sad or vindicated. I felt free. Like I'd finally stepped out of the shadow of someone else's version of me. Sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped in forgiveness. Sometimes it's just peace, quiet, a sense that you don't owe anyone a performance anymore. And that realization, it was the best gift I'd ever received, even better than justice, even better than revenge. Because for once I wasn't waiting for their love. I was standing strong in my own. A few weeks later, I hosted a small gathering at the lake house, just close friends and a few neighbors who had become like family. The place felt alive again, not haunted by what had been taken from me, but full of what I had reclaimed. We cooked together, laughed under strings of warm patio lights, and watched the sun dip below the trees. No one asked me about my parents or about Lacey. They didn't have to. The silence said it all. This was my space now, my story. One of my friends, Olivia, leaned over as we sipped wine by the fire pit. "You've changed," she said. "You're lighter." I smiled, not out of pride, but because it was true. I had let go not for them, but for me. For the girl who sat alone on her birthday. For the woman who now stood tall, unshaken. I used to think healing would feel like triumph, like some loud, victorious moment. But in truth, it was quiet. It came in choosing peace over bitterness, self-respect over revenge. That night, I walked down to the water alone. The moon reflected off the lake like silver glass. I remembered how my grandfather used to take me here when I was small, telling me stories, pointing out constellations, reminding me that I mattered. He saw something in me that no one else did. And now, years later, I was finally starting to see it too. I whispered a thank you to the wind. Not just to him, but to myself. For holding on. For not letting their cruelty define my worth. For becoming someone I was proud of, even if it took years and heartbreak to get here. As I walked back to the house, laughter floated through the air, and the smell of toasted marshmallows made me smile. I didn't need a perfect family. I had love, real love. Built from honesty, from resilience, from choosing myself every single time they didn't. And that was more than enough. A few days after the lake house gathering, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was my mother's. For a moment, I just stared at it, heart pounding. I hadn't spoken to her since everything fell apart. Part of me didn't even want to open it. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside the letter was short, apologetic in a way that felt distant. She said she regretted how things turned out, that she didn't realize how much her actions had hurt me. There was no real ownership, no mention of my birthday, of the lies, or of how they had cast me aside. Just vague words about misunderstandings and family being complicated. I folded the letter and tucked it away in a drawer. Not because I forgave her, at least not yet, but because I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need their words to validate my experience. I had already moved on. Later that evening, I sat on the porch, journal in hand, writing not about pain, but about possibility. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my own narrative. I wasn't the girl trying to earn love anymore. I was the woman who knew she already deserved it. It's strange how healing happens. Not all at once, not in big moments, but in small choices, choosing not to reply, choosing to write instead, choosing to build a life where I am safe, respected, and seen. And maybe that's the real victory. Not getting them to say sorry, but not needing them to. Not needing them at all. What started as a heartbreaking moment on my 27th birthday became a turning point in my life. From being forgotten, dismissed, and betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me most, I found the strength to walk away and rebuild. Through grief and silence, through painful truths and unexpected kindness, from my grandfather's letter to that final birthday gift, I realized I didn't need their approval to be whole. I just needed to choose myself. This story isn't just about family drama. It's about waking up to the reality that some relationships only survive when you keep shrinking yourself. And it's about choosing to stop, choosing boundaries, choosing healing, choosing to stop chasing love where it was never truly offered. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, like your voice didn't matter, I hope this story reminded you that it does. You matter. You are allowed to be the main character in your own life, not someone else's afterthought. And sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. Don't wait for someone to finally treat you right. Don't wait for the apology that may never come. Start honoring your worth right now. Set your boundaries. Build your peace. Reclaim your joy. You don't need their validation to move forward, you only need your own. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I hope it gave you the clarity, courage, or even just the comfort to know you're not alone. Family doesn't always mean love, and healing doesn't always come from them. Sometimes it comes from finally choosing yourself.